Hello everyone and welcome back to the 3T Path channel and to our Uddhava-gita course. Now, today we're going to start a very important, very famous Puranic story of the pigeon as told by Guru Dattatreya. Krishna is telling this story to Uddhava. This wonderful, very famous, very tragic story. So make sure you watch the whole thing. Now, if you want to watch the previous Uddhava-gita classes, check out the link below, become a member of the Uddhava-gita club and of this channel, and then you can have access to the entire Uddhava-gita course and watch all the classes as many times as you want. So let's get started. We are here in the 11th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, chapter 7, verse 53. This is where the story starts. And it starts just like a story. There once was a pigeon who lived in the forest along with his wife. He had built a nest within a tree and lived there for several years in her company. So it starts very nice, right? Nice little story. A little pigeon married with a wonderful little nest in a tree. Verse 54. The two pigeons were very much devoted to their household duties. Their hearts being tied together by sentimental affection, they were each attracted by each other's glances, bodily features, and states of mind. Thus, they completely bound each other in affection. So far, really good, right? This is a real love story. This is great. Purport. The male and female pigeons were so attracted to each other that they could not tolerate even a moment's separation from one another. This is called Bhagavat Vishmriti, or forgetfulness of the Supreme Lord and attachment to dead matter. The living entity has an eternal love for the Lord, but when perverted, that love is manifested as false material affection. A pale reflection of actual pleasure thus becomes the foundation of a false life based on forgetfulness of the absolute truth. So in the purport here, things are getting dark already. Verse 55. Naively trusting in the future, they carried out their acts of resting, sitting, walking, standing, conversing, playing, eating, and so forth, as a loving couple among the trees of the forest. So this is great. Life is wonderful. Perfect love, perfect happiness. Everything is just great. We should just stop here, right? No, because it's going to get dark. Verse 56. Whenever she desired anything, O king, the she-pigeon would flatteringly cajole her husband, and he in turn would gratify her by faithfully doing whatever she wanted, even with great personal difficulty. Thus he could not control his senses in her association. So a little bit of darkness creeping into the story here. Purport. The word tarpayanti indicates that the lady pigeon was quite expert in seducing her husband through smiling glances and loving talks. Thus, appealing to his noble sentiments, she efficiently engaged him as her faithful servant. The poor pigeon was ajitendriya, or one who cannot control his senses and whose heart is easily melted by the beauty of a woman. The Brahmana Avaduta, the Brahmana Guru Dattatreya, who's telling this story to the king, is giving valuable instruction by narrating the story of the two pigeons and the terrible distress they suffered by inevitable separation. So this is like, what's going to happen in the story. If one's intelligence is not dedicated to serving Rishikesha, the Supreme Lord of sensitivity, so Rishikesha is a name of God, which means specifically the controller of the senses, the Lord of the senses. Undoubtedly, one will plunge into the nescience of bodily gratification. Then one becomes no better than a foolish pigeon Okay. Verse 57. Then the female pigeon experienced her first pregnancy. This is so wonderful, isn't it? These wonderful couple, they're beautiful, live in a great place, great forest, great nest, and now her first pregnancy. So everything is going like a Disney story so far, really nice. When the time arrived, the chaste lady delivered a number of eggs within the nest in the presence of her husband. Verse 58. When the time was ripe, baby pigeons with tender limbs and feathers created by the inconceivable potencies of the Lord were born from those eggs. So this is so exciting. The little babies are now born. Verse 59, the two pigeons became most affectionate to their children and took great pleasure in listening to their awkward chirping, which sounded very sweet to the parents. Thus, with love, they began to raise the little birds who were born of them. Oh wow, this is great, isn't it? It's a beautiful little family in nature, in the forest. This is beautiful, isn't it? Verse 60. The parent birds became very joyful by observing the soft wings of their children, their chirping, their lovely innocent movements around the nest, and their attempts to jump up and fly. Seeing their children happy, their parents were also happy. So beautiful. They're learning to, they're chirping around, they're trying to fly, so everybody's super happy. This is an amazing scene. Life is beautiful. Verse 61, their hearts bound to each other by affection, the foolish birds, completely bewildered by the illusory energy of Lord Vishnu, continued to take care of the young offsprings who had been born of them. So, what's wrong with that, right? They're just taking care of their children. This is perfectly good, right? This is all great. We're going to see there's a little problem here, though. Verse 62, one day, the two heads of the family went out to find food for the children. Being very anxious to feed their offspring properly, they wandered all over the forest for a long time. Verse 63, at that time, a certain hunter who happened to be wandering through the forest saw the young pigeons moving about near their nest. Spreading out his net, he captured them all. Oh my God. Verse 64. The pigeon and his wife were always anxious for the maintenance of their children, and they were wandering in the forest for that purpose. Having obtained proper food, they now returned to their nest. But what did they find? Verse 65. When the lady pigeon caught sight of her own children trapped within the hunter's net, she was overwhelmed with anguish and crying out. She rushed toward them as they cried out to her in return. So she's very brave. The babies are trapped. And so she just didn't even think about it. She just rushed forward to try to save them as they were crying out, Mama, Mama. It's very sad. It's really, no. I try to laugh so I don't cry because this story is so sad. It's crazy. Verse 66. The lady pigeon had always allowed herself to be bound by the ropes of intense material affection, and thus her mind was overwhelmed by anguish. Being in the grip of the illusory energy of the Lord, she completely forgot herself, and rushing forward to her helpless children, she was immediately bound by the hunter's net. So it was, it's a hunter's net. The hunter was there. She just went right into the trap. She got trapped as well. She didn't even think about it. She had no chance of saving her children, but she just rushed forward, and now she is caught as well. Verse 67. Seeing his own children, who were more dear to him than life itself, fatally bound in the hunter's net, along with his dearmost wife, whom he considered equal in every way to himself, the poor male pigeon began to lament wretchedly. So look at his situation. His whole family is trapped, on their way to being killed and eaten. And he's just looking at this. This is life. Life was so wonderful. Everything was perfect. Just like that. Everything got really bad. Things went south really quickly, right? It was just like a perfect life. Disaster, complete, horrible tragedy. So now he's lamenting wretchedly. Verse 68. The male pigeon said, "Alas, just see how I am now destroyed. I am obviously a great fool, for I did not properly execute pious activities. I could not satisfy myself, nor could I fulfill the purpose of my life. My dear family, which was the basis of my dharma, my religiosity, economic development, and sense gratification, is now hopelessly ruined." So now he's saying that his whole family, who was the basis of his 3 goals in life, his 4 goals, but he was only thinking of 3 because he is completely a total materialist, right? Dharma, Artha, Kama. He forgot moksha. In this channel you can see the 4 goals of human life, and I tell you about the 4. Actually it's 5. So it just says here's the 3 goals of life. Dharma, Artha, Kama. So he says, my family, which was the basis of my Dharma, Artha. So everything for him was just like family Dharma, just working for the family. Artha, getting stuff, getting the nice nest and nice food just for the family. Kama, all his pleasure just came from his family. His whole life was based on this. And now he's saying, well, what a fool I was. Because your whole life is totally based on just material things, on the surface. So now you can start seeing what would look like something beautiful was actually tragic, spiritually speaking. And materially speaking, it's tragic as well. And we see this all the time. If you put all your chips in material things, if you're a materialist, your life is full of anxiety, because that's the nature of matter. In 1 second, everything goes south. In 1 second, you just lose it. You're there and then it's gone so quickly. So many stories. I mean, you've seen them. You've probably seen them. You might have experienced them in your life. You've certainly seen it in your family, extended family, I'm sure. What to speak of friends, what to speak of like newspapers, or stories and movies. I mean, things just go bad really quickly. Everything's great. Then it's not. Boom. Everything is fine, and then something horrific happens. Horrible disease, horrible accident, war, missile falls in your head, regime change, government attacks you. Like, you just don't know what's going to happen. But death will come. Destruction will come. I mean, this is a guaranteed fact of life, right? Death is a guaranteed fact of life. Great empires rise and fall. Everything ends. The sun is going to explode. The universe is going to contract. Everything's going to end. So this is not going to work out. And so you put all your chips in just material things. That joy is false. It's dangerously. You're just walking on thin ice. It looks like it's okay, but at any second you'd go through and you die a horrible death. That's what it is. And now he's perceiving that. Purport. Srila Sridhar Swami. Srila Sridhar Swami is the most ancient commentator of the Bhagavatam we have registered to this day. So, traditionally the Bhagavatam comes with these comments, right? And so Sridhar Swami is the most ancient commentary, about 800 years ago. So he explains that the word atriptasya indicate that the pigeon was not satisfied with the sense gratification he had achieved. Although he was completely attached to his wife, children, and nest, he could not sufficiently enjoy them, since there's ultimately no satisfaction in such things. So that's the whole thing, right? That's the whole, recently I just posted a video on this channel as well about, understanding that ultimately, sarvam dukkam, everything is frustration. So the other problem with being a materialist, the clear, obvious problem of losing everything in one moment is there. But the other problem is that it actually doesn't work. It's even worse, because you could be lucky. You could no, I'll be lucky. And people always think it's not going to happen to them, right? It's always like, no, that's not going to happen to me, right? We never think things, bad thing, no, I'm not going to be in a car accident. People are in car accidents all the time, but no, I won't be in a car accident. I won't get the disease, I won't go sick, I won't go to the hospital. It's always not me, but of course, it will be you as well. Statistically, it could be any of us any second. But anyway, we always think it. So you could say, no, I'll just be lucky. None of these bad things will happen to me. I'll be happy. I'll just be a total materialist and I'll be totally happy. Nothing bad will happen. But then the problem is it doesn't even work. Even if something bad doesn't happen, even if you're one of the lucky ones, if you've committed, if you've accumulated good pious deeds, good karma. That's what he's complaining about. Oh, I didn't have enough good karma. The pigeon is like, oh, I should have had more good karma. I didn't cultivate enough pious deeds to have lots of good karma, so bad things don't happen to me. Because that's the Vedic view, right? If something bad happens, it's like, oops, I did some, sinful deeds and now I'm paying for that. But let's say you accumulated lots of good karma. So you have this life, nothing bad's gonna happen. Can you imagine if somebody could come up to you, some fortune teller or something, some great Vedic astrologers, they say no, look, your life, nothing bad will happen to you. You have this crazy life where nothing bad will happen. You'll never never be hospitalized. You will never suffer losses, attacks, your family, you're gonna your children are gonna outlive you, everybody's gonna, it's like you're gonna live in old age and everybody's gonna outlive you. It's great. Even then, sarvam dukkam, there is no satisfaction. Even then, it doesn't work. Because this isn't good enough for the soul. The soul needs much more. It is not satisfied with a nice nest, with a nice wife and nice children. It's nice, good, but it's not enough to satisfy the soul. It's really not. And it's almost never this nice, right? Who's married here? Let's not even get into that, right? Who has perfect children and a perfect husband or wife? Come on, right? Seriously. Zero. But anyway, no, there must be a few people. But even if, it's still sarvam dukkam. It's still no satisfaction in that. Because the soul is not into matter. Remember the last verse of the Yoga Sutras. Patanjali says that the soul achieves liberation, kaivalya, when it understands shunya artha, that Gunas, matter, material, existence, shunya artha, zero value. Zero, shunya, no value, zero. So that's the truth. Matter has zero value for the soul. The soul wants love, it wants service. The soul wants soul activities, not matter. So you can say, well, family, it's all love. Yeah, but it's love based on matter. It's matter. It requires matter to operate, so it doesn't work. It's very frustrating. There's not enough of it. You don't get enough of it. It's like trying to chew something hard to get some juice out of it. It's not very satisfying. You're not going to get it. So, no value. So, it won't work. It will probably be a disaster. And even when it is working, it leaves you with no satisfaction, sarvam dukkham, frustration. So now you understand this. Akritarthasya indicates that his hopes and dreams for future expansions of his sense gratification were now also ruined. People commonly refer to their home, sweet home, as their nest. And money put aside for future sense gratification is called a nest egg. Therefore, all of the lovebirds of the material world should clearly note how their so-called wife, children, and fortune will all be dragged away in the hunter's net. In other words, death will finish everything. So, purport, really heavy, really heavy purport. Verse 69, my wife and I were an ideal match. She always faithfully obeyed me, and in fact accepted me as her worshipful deity. This is a foolish husband's dear goal, right? My wife faithfully obeyed me and accepted me as her worshipful deity. Good luck with that today anyway. But okay, Mr. Pigeon, he had that in his days, all right. But now, seeing her children lost and her home empty, she has left me behind and gone to heaven with her saintly children. Verse 70, now I am a wretched person living in an empty home. My wife is dead. My children are dead. Why should I possibly want to live? My heart is so pained by separation from my family that life itself has simply become suffering. This is really heavy, really tragic. This is happening every day. Every day this is happening, right? People lose their families, lose their children. Horrible. So painful. And if you have no spiritual baggage, if you have no spiritual vision, it's devastating. It really makes life itself become simply suffering. People even kill themselves. It becomes unbearable. Because they put all their chips in the wrong thing. They don't see things as they are. If you don't have the spiritual vision to see, okay, I have children, I have wife, husband, okay, but they're all eternal spiritual souls, as am I. And at any moment, I can lose contact with them because my contact with them is through this uncertain thing, this ephemeral thing called matter, which is always changing. Matter is always changing, right? Every moment changes. Atoms are moving, things are happening. Never stays the same. Ephemeral, temporary, impermanent. So if you want to love your children. Of course, I have children. I'm married. You can love. You should. Yeah. Love. Have children. Love your children, your grandchildren, brothers and mother. And sure. But don't go crazy. Don't lose sight of reality. Don't lose touch with reality. That means you become crazy, right? If you lose touch with reality, you're a crazy person. So don't be crazy. Don't lose touch with reality. Don't forget that this love, which is of the soul, is being filtered and is going through this highly unstable environment called matter. This impermanent thing. Those things doomed to death, bodies, all doomed to death. Every single body is doomed to death. So you're loving through this environment. Don't lose touch of that. So love now, make the most of it, but not attached. Not thinking that your happiness depends on it, because it cannot. Because that thing will fail. You will die, they will die, both will die. That's guaranteed. Or they'll just end, it will sour. You might find out that your loving wife was worshiping another deity or something. If you know what I mean. Or vice versa normally. So then what? So you can't depend on this. So that was his mistake. And he's suffering horribly. We don't have to suffer. We can learn from the pigeon and not suffer. Verse 71. As the father pigeon wretchedly stared at his poor children trapped in the net and on the verge of death, pathetically struggling to free themselves, his mind went blank. And thus he himself fell into the hunter's net. Game over. He just couldn't take it. He was in shock. And the hunter said, oh, another pigeon, great. Make a bigger pie. Got him as well. That's it. The whole family dead. The cruel hunter, having fulfilled his desire by capturing the head pigeon, his wife, and all their children, set off for his own home. Verse 73. In this way, one who is too attached to family life becomes disturbed at heart. Like the pigeon, he tries to find pleasure in mundane sex attraction, busily engaged in maintaining his own family. The miserly person is fated to suffer greatly, along with all his family members. So now Guru Dattatreya just lays on the heavy teachings to the king. This is a king, he's got children and wives and everything. So he's laying this on. This is a very important lesson for the king, for all of us. But the king, usually gets very attached because life is better for the king than for most of us commoners. So he really lays it on thick. Verse 74. The doors of liberation are opened wide to one who has achieved human life. But if a human being simply devotes himself to family life, like the foolish bird of this story, then he is to be considered as one who has climbed to a high place only to trip and fall down. Because a pigeon, he was a pigeon. So we, give him a break. He was a pigeon. What are pigeons supposed to do? Pigeons can't read Bhagavad-gita. They can't be on YouTube watching Uddhava-gita class. So what, give the pigeon a break. But humans, No. Human life is so special. In human life, this is it. Liberation. We're at the door of liberation. Just, press 2 if you want to be liberated. It's just like, you're so there. It's like right in front of you. Look how easy it is. You got a whole Uddhava-gita course right here for free. I mean, it's just like, it's so easy. Bhagavad-gita, Uddhava-gita, just practice. It's not hard. It's so easy. Follow the 3T path. Not hard. It's not hard. Right there. It's wonderful. It's pleasurable. Krishna says, Susukham kartum. It's, it's happily done. It's done with joy. It's a path that's full of joy. So it's like easy, joyful path. It's great. So you got all the way here. You got a human life. Liberation is right there waiting for you. After all those lives as, like a silly pigeon and this and that and a dog in the tree and the other thing and, and demigods, you were too busy. Now you got this life. And you're going to waste it with sarvam dukkam stuff? You're going to waste it trying to find pleasure where you won't find it? Risking yourself? Putting your whole life, risking tragedy at every step, danger at every step? Purport. So thus ends the purports of the humble servants of His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, the 11th Canto, 7th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled Lord Krishna Instructs Uddhava. So that's it. This is the end of the story. I hope you enjoyed it. It's a very important, tragic, famous story, one to be reflected upon, for us to take into our lives, take into our heart, and live with more intelligence, with our intelligence connected to spirituality, with our spiritual vision opened and active. I hope you enjoyed it. Have a wonderful day with lots of peace and lots of love. Hare Krishna.